Hi, everyone. Welcome to Insights in Caribbean Intellectual Property, the official podcast of the Caribbean and Americas Intellectual Property Organization. I am Marissa Hayes, along with Janelle Taylor, Gary Tang, and Sally Hines. Today, we will be discussing the new book by Dr. Abiola Inniss titled A Comprehensive Guide to Trademark Registrations in the Caribbean.
You know what's fascinating about intellectual property law? The Caribbean is completely transforming how it works in the region, and it's happening right under everyone's nose. Today, we're exploring how this quiet revolution could reshape the entire region's economic future.
Well, that's really interesting timing, especially with this comprehensive new guide coming from Dr. Abiola Inniss. What makes her perspective so unique?
So here's what's remarkable about Dr. Innes. She's not just writing about these changes from an ivory tower, she's actually been right in the trenches as the founding director of CAAIPO, which is the only organization specifically focused on IP rights and policies in the Caribbean.
You know what really caught my attention? The way she frames intellectual property as something much bigger than just legal procedures. From what I understand, she sees it as this fundamental tool for economic development.
That's exactly right. And let me give you a perfect example of how this is playing out. Jamaica just went through this massive overhaul of their trademark laws. We're talking about recognizing things like sound marks, smell marks, even holograms. But here's what's really fascinating. They've also added this specific protection for traditional cultural expressions.
That's actually pretty groundbreaking. So they're not just modernizing the technical aspects, they're actually thinking about protecting cultural heritage?
Right. And what's really interesting is how this connects to what Dr. Innes discovered in her research about Guyana. Despite having what you might call outdated IP laws, Guyana showed the highest levels of local innovation among all the major CARICOM economies. It completely challenges our assumptions about how legal frameworks and innovation interact.
Well, that's unexpected. Almost like a paradox. Do we know why that might be happening?
So here's what makes it so intriguing. Dr. Innes suggests it's not just about having modern laws on the books. It's about understanding how these laws interact with local culture, informal economic activity, and other factors we might not typically consider.
You know, speaking of modernization, I've been reading about how Trinidad and Tobago has made some pretty significant changes too. They've moved to electronic filing and they're preparing to join something called the Madrid Protocol.
Oh yeah, the Madrid Protocol is huge. Think of it like a global one-stop shop for trademark registration. Instead of having to file separately in every country, you can file once and designate multiple countries. Jamaica's already joined, Trinidad and Tobago is getting ready, and Bermuda's new laws are paving the way for them to join too.
That seems like it could be a double-edged sword, though. Wouldn't it make it easier for big international brands to move into these markets?
You've hit on something really crucial there. It absolutely does make it easier for international brands to enter Caribbean markets. But here's the flip side. It also makes it easier for Caribbean businesses to protect their brands internationally. Like a small Jamaican company can now file one application and get protection in over 130 countries.
So, what does this mean for local businesses? How should they be thinking about this?
Well, Doctor, Innes makes this fascinating point in her work. She argues that businesses need to think about IP rights as part of their broader strategic planning. It's not just about defending your trademark. It's about using it as a tool for growth and expansion.
That reminds me of something I read in the research. Didn't she propose a 5-stage strategic IP plan for Guyana?
Yes. And this is where it gets really interesting. She breaks it down into creation strategy, legal framework development, exploitation of rights, human resource expansion, and implementation. But here's what's clever. She argues that these stages need to happen simultaneously, not sequentially.
Well, that's quite different from how most countries approach IP law reform, isn't it?
Exactly. Most countries tend to focus just on updating their laws and call it a day. But Dr. Innes argues that without building the whole ecosystem, including training people, creating commercialization opportunities, and fostering innovation, you're basically just putting a fancy frame around an empty canvas.
You know what's really striking about all this? It seems like we're watching this pivotal moment in Caribbean economic development unfold in real time.
That's so true. And here's what makes it even more fascinating. This isn't happening through some top down CARICOM treaty. It's what Dr. Inniss calls harmonization by modernization. Each country is independently updating its laws, but they're all moving towards similar international standards.
And I suppose that's what makes her upcoming guide so timely?
Exactly right. And you know what's really clever about it? While it's technically a guide about trademark registration requirements, it's actually doing something much more subtle. It's educating its readers about this whole strategic vision for how IP rights can drive economic development.
That's quite brilliant, actually. Using a practical guide to spread a bigger economic message.
And here's what I think is the most important takeaway from all this. The Caribbean doesn't need to play catch up with international IP standards. They can use this moment of transformation to think deeply about how IP rights can protect both economic and cultural interests. It's like they're writing a new playbook for how developing regions can approach intellectual property law.
Well, that certainly gives us a lot to watch for in the coming years.
You know what's really going to be interesting? Seeing how this all plays out when Bermuda's new laws take effect in August 2025. It could be the tipping point that pushes the rest of the region to accelerate their own modernization efforts. The Caribbean might just be showing us the future of how intellectual property law can serve both economic development and cultural preservation.
Thanks, Janelle, Gary, and Sally, for this fascinating discussion, and thank you for listening. Be sure to join us on the next edition of Insights in Caribbean Intellectual Property. Be sure to follow us wherever you listen to this podcast so that we can let you know about new episodes. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.